Good evening, everyone. My name is Courtney Rogers. I am president of the League of Women Voters of Norwood, and I want to welcome you to our candidates forum for the 12th Norfolk State Representative seat. We are pleased to be able to partner with Norwood Community Media again to bring you this event, and we would like to thank everyone in advance for lending us their time and expertise to provide information about their candidacy and plans for Norwood citizens. In particular, I'd like to thank our Voter Service Committee, led by Sarah Cullen, for all of their advance work to make this evening run smoothly for you. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan, multi-issue organization that encourages informed, active participation of citizens in government. The mission of the League of Women Voters can be summarized in the following phrase: empowering voters, defending democracy. The League's larger vision is a democracy where every person has the desire, the right, the knowledge, and the confidence to participate, as well as a belief in the power of women to create a more perfect democracy. And it is in this spirit of empowering voters that we bring you tonight's program. The League does not specifically endorse candidates for election, but will provide information about candidates to help serve that piece of our mission regarding an educated and informed voting public. No League members involved in this forum, including the planners, moderator, and timekeeper, are endorsing either of these candidates for this office. You can find detailed information about the candidates running for office and about the Norwood chapter of the League by following us on Facebook and Twitter at League of Women Voters Norwood, Mass, and at our website at www.lwvnorwoodma.org. If anyone is interested in joining the League of Women Voters, please contact the Norwood League via email, lwvnorwoodma@gmail.com. The slide you see shows the 12th Norfolk District for Massachusetts. The 12th Norfolk encompasses Norwood and certain precincts in Walpole. There are two candidates running in the Democratic primary for this district, Mr. John Rogers and Mr. Michael Dooley, who are both here at this forum. There are no candidates running for this office in the Republican, Green Rainbow, or Libertarian parties. In Massachusetts, voters who are not enrolled in one of the four parties may choose to vote in any of the party primaries. Voters enrolled in a party may only vote in that party's primary. We are also pleased to welcome back Florence Selden from the League of Women Voters Cape Cod area as moderator of our forum for this evening. She has moderated many candidate forums for towns both on and off the Cape. Dr. Selden is currently the vice chair of the Chatham Finance Commission and served on the Chatham Board of Selectmen from 2009 to 2015, including 2 years as chairperson. Dr. Selden has her doctoral degree in education from the University of Rochester. She was a teacher and educational administrator, including serving as superintendent of schools in Harvard, Mass. I will now turn it over to Florence for an overview of the format and to begin the forum itself.
Thank you, Courtney. This is the procedures that we will be following tonight. The candidates received and agreed to the format and ground rules at an earlier time. So each candidate, here are the ground rules. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for an opening statement. We'll then move to a series of questions directed at the two candidates, which answers will alternate between them, starting in alphabetical order. The response time for those questions will be 2 minutes. If a candidate does not need to fill the 2 minutes, you may use your time to respond to a previous question, to amplify a response, or to change something. There will be a timer running, as we've already said, in order to inform the candidates how much time remains as each speaks. A yellow screen will appear when there are 30 seconds left, and a red stop sign will be displayed when the time is up and candidates are expected to stop speaking. I will allow you to finish your sentence after the stop sign appears, but please, not an entire paragraph. Questions were collected in advance from the public via email and selected by the League of Women Voters of Norwood. Questions will be addressed to both candidates and will apply to issues or qualifications for their particular office. We'll ask as many questions as time allows, striving to cover a variety of topics. Then we'll finish with a 2-minute closing statement from each candidate in reverse alphabetical order from the opening statements. And so please mute your audio when it isn't your turn to speak. So we're ready for the opening statement from each candidate. And Michael, you are first.
First off, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight's candidates forum and for all the work that you do in town. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight, and welcome to everybody who's watching at home. My name is Mike Dooley, and I'm running for state representative in Norwood and Walpole. I'm a lifelong Norwood resident, and I'm a proud product of our public school system. I currently serve as a town meeting member for District 7. My term as the membership director of the Young Democrats in Massachusetts just expired, and under my leadership, we've doubled our membership and lobbied for legislation, such as the Roe Act, of which I'm the only candidate in this race who supports a woman's right to choose. I'm running because I want to serve others, because I meet so many people who feel disconnected from their state government. From the position of state representative, I can affect their lives indirectly through legislation and directly by being accessible and willing to work with them on their concerns or needs. I'm running because I believe that the first job of a state representative is to be active in the communities that they represent, to see and hear what matters most to you. Our district deserves an enthusiastic representative, one who's energetic and eager to bring new ideas to the forefront, thinking about our future. Frankly, I believe that the position of state representative should be representative of the district that they serve, and it's time for a fresh voice. My opponent likes to say that he secured money for the district, but that's just the bare minimum of the job. These are called entitlements to our taxpayers, and don't get that confused with legislative accomplishments and achievements. When I'm your state representative, I guarantee that my door will always be open. I guarantee that anytime you call or text me, I'll always get back to you. I guarantee that your concerns will always be heard, even when we disagree, and that you'll always have a seat at my table. That means holding consistent office hours in the district that accommodate the schedules of working families. We're facing challenges that we need real leadership to confront. Our schools should be prioritizing growth, not proficiency. When we teach to the potential of every student, we can really inspire community leaders of tomorrow. We have a serious public health crisis on our hands with COVID-19 and the opioid epidemic. We need more innovation in addressing these issues. We need the legislature to take more action on both of them. We need to increase assistance to struggling families. We need to lower the cost of prescription drugs. And we need to fully fund our mental health care system. I'm grateful to have the backing of multiple organizations who are incredible advocates, such as NARAL Pro-Choice Mass, the Bay State Stonewall Democrats, and the Sierra Club, as well as some of our trusted local elected leaders, such as the chair of the Norwood Select Board, Bill Plasko, and Norwood School Committee member, Dave Catania. I promise I'll always put the needs of the people of Norwood and Walpole first, and I want to thank the League again for giving us this opportunity, and I hope to earn your vote on or before Tuesday, September 1st.
Thank you, Michael. John, your
Thank you,
opening
Mr.
statement.
Thank you for your leadership this evening and moderating this debate. I want to thank the League of Women Voters. I also want to thank the women voters in my district, who I represent on the occasion of the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment. My name is John Rogers. I'm your state representative, and here's my report to you. I co-wrote the Student Opportunity Act, a law that I've been pushing for 7 years. It brings a 21% increase for Norwood Public Schools. Last year and last month, I obtained the commitment from House and Senate leaders and budget writers to maintain the funding for the Norwood Public Schools. That's $2.8 million more than in FY19. I secured $970 million for the Massachusetts School Building Authority, the program I created that led to the creation of the new Norwood High School at a savings of $40 million to local Norwood taxpayers. And will save more than $50 million for Walpole and Norwood taxpayers to build the new middle schools. I secured $750,000 for personal protective equipment for Norwood and $700,000 for PPE for Walpole. Recently, I secured $2.7 million from the Department of Environmental Protection to fix Norwood's sewer system and to give Norwood the type of capacity that could prevent the catastrophic destruction that was suffered by our citizens and our local homes and businesses in Norwood. I created a $50 million fund designed to draw down federal relief money, a $10 million fund through the Department of Emergency Management for homes and businesses destroyed by the superstorm. I was one of a handful of legislators to urge the Governor Baker, to declare a state of emergency at the beginning of the pandemic. I worked with Congressman Steve Lynch to deliver 2,095 masks and 6,000 face shields to our frontline workers at Norwood Hospital. and I stood with our first responders. And just today, I secured a $46,000 state grant from the Executive Office of Public Safety for Norwood Police Department, for webcams, for laptops, for N95 masks. My opponent talks about representation, yet he's missed the last 8 of the last 12 Norwood town meetings, and he skipped out on 200 votes. He fails to be a part-time representative for a part-time town meeting.
Seem to have some technical difficulty. John? Can you hear us? Can you hear me? Are you muted? John, are you muted? Unmute yourself. We can't hear you. John?
Yes.
There, now we can. Go ahead, continue.
1 second. Sarah, can you give another
Yeah,
10
give him
seconds
another.
back, because he was frozen and no one could hear him.
We couldn't hear him. Take off the 30-second sign. Go back a bit, Sarah. Yeah. John, go ahead.
During these uncertain times, the people of Norwood and Walpole require a steady hand with a proven track record and experience. The only change they care about is the candidate who can best affect positive change in their lives. And I humbly submit that that's me, and humbly request your vote.
Thank you, John. All right, we're now going to start the questions, and the first question is directed to John. You have 2 minutes to respond. Let me say, this is the first question. What will be your first priority in this term? And you have 2 minutes, John.
My highest priority is full funding of education, for full funding of the Student Opportunity Act, which means a 21% increase for Norwood, $2.8 million more than FY19. It also means $14.4 million for Walpole Public Schools. I created the Massachusetts School Building Authority. The Student Opportunity Act invests $150 million more to create 21st century schools. This will result in a $50 million savings to the citizens of the taxpayers of Walpole and the taxpayers of Norwood. Full funding of the Student Opportunity Act means full funding of the special ed circuit breaker, a program that I created. I want to see it fully funded. I was also the author of the law that says you have to build in transportation as a component of the circuit breaker to get school districts quicker to the circuit breaker so that they can get the money and reimbursement money from the state. I also am pushing for full funding of charter school reimbursements. The Student Opportunity Act, which I co-wrote, is my top priority for the sake not only of our teachers, but for the sake of the school children of Norwood and Walpole.
Thank you, John. Michael, do you need the question repeated?
Yes, please.
What will be your first priority in this term?
Thank you. I'd agree. It's public education. And I'd say that the Student Opportunity Act doesn't go far enough. I think that we need to pass the Fair Share Amendment, which is a 4% surtax on some of the wealthiest members in Massachusetts. The Student Opportunity Act is still not fully funding some of the school districts that are struggling, such as Attleboro and Chelsea. And I'd say that we just had this issue last year with the override. I'm the only candidate who came out in support of the override. And I think that we need to be prioritizing growth over proficiency in our public schools. When we do that, we can establish the community leaders of tomorrow. As the only candidate who went through public schools K through 12, I know the firsthand experiences that we face in public education. I'm a proud supporter of the I Am Act, which would provide mental products in our schools, and also the Healthy Youth Act to modernize sex education. When I'm your state representative, I'd also lead the charge in passing a law to expand student lunch debt forgiveness, because no child should ever have to go hungry because they can't afford a school lunch. I'd also push for universal pre-kindergarten and kindergarten at the state level. These are some of the most critical times in a child's development, and every child has a right to comprehensive education.
Thank you, Michael. And for the second question, we're going to start with you. How important do you believe experience is in being an effective legislator?
It's a good question. I think it's important, and I think I do have experience running a statewide organization as the membership director with the Young Democrats of Massachusetts. We were able to lobby for some legislation of which my opponent doesn't even support, like the Roe Act, and also double our membership and retain membership in the Democratic Party. I think I'm experienced enough to know that we've had absent leadership on Beacon Hill, and I'm experienced enough to know that we have a healthcare crisis that you're not doing enough to combat. I'm experienced enough to know that our public schools need a real advocate. And you were also in your 20s when you were elected, John, and your direct predecessor was 23. And I'm experienced enough to know that the people in Norwood and Walpole need a fresh voice.
John, do you need to have the question repeated?
No, but thank you, Madam Moderator. Yeah, I was 27 when I was elected. I was 28, actually. I finished, unlike you, I finished my college education. And I went to law school, and I put myself through law school full-time at nights by working for my predecessor, Greg Sullivan, full-time during the days. So experience does matter. But your experience, Michael, is disappointing. 8 out of the last 12 Norwood town meetings, you were elected by Precinct 7 constituents, and you failed to show up to work for any of those town budgets. So you're asking the citizens of Norwood and Walpole to support you as a state legislator when, as a local legislator, you never showed up for the job.
All right. John, you get the first response to this question. How do you plan to stay in touch with your constituents' concerns and needs should you be elected?
Well, I'm in touch with my constituents every day. I just texted Chief Brooks just before we began tonight's debate to tell him about the $46,000 I was able to secure for Norwood Police Department for webcams and laptops and masks. I speak with Norwood people every day, Walpole people every day. I was always careful to have a member of either the Norwood School Committee or the Walpole School Committee built in as a member of my staff. Bill Buckley, who chaired the Walpole School Committee, told me about Walpole's educational needs for the town of Walpole. Rich Power was the chair of the Norwood School Committee, every day advising me how to, about the needs of educators. And
Thank you, John. Michael, do you need the question repeated?
Please.
How do you plan to stay in touch with your constituents' concerns and needs should you be elected?
yes. Oh, should I? Yeah, the same.
No, that I think Michael is.
Hang on. I think we had John freeze again.
Oh, what
From
happened?
watching the video.
Oh, okay. You want me to start again with question 3?
So, John, if you could pick up what you were saying after Chief Brooks,
Right.
and then finish
You
that
want-
thought, and then we'll let Michael answer the question. It's I'm sorry, I'm jumping in on you, Flo. It's just when it freezes.
That's okay. I couldn't tell if it froze.
Yeah.
And it's frozen now. John,
Okay, can you hear me, Madam Moderator?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Moderator. Yes, I'm in
No, we're not getting him again, Courtney. John, you're muted. Wait a minute. Let me see if I can unmute you. John, can you unmute? John?
Gotcha.
How's that?
Yeah, now, okay.
Okay.
I think we'll start again with you with question 3, John. John, how do you plan to, let's start. How do you plan to stay in touch with your constituents' concerns and needs should you be elected? I know you were halfway through, so pick it up.
Okay, I'm in touch with my constituents every day, 7 days of the week. I have members of my staff that have been members of the Walpole School Committee and members of the Norwood School Committee that keep me in touch on educational issues. I just got off the phone, just texted Chief Brooks from the town of Norwood to alert him that I was able to secure a $46,000 state grant from the Executive Office of Public Safety for Norwood Police Department, for webcams, for laptops, and for masks. When you're
Again, you're muted. I don't know what's happening. John, hold on. Can you hear me? All right. John, we'll start again. Sorry to do this to you, but you keep freezing and we don't know why, whether the connection is in your side. So let's go back to that question 3, and you were in the middle of it. How you plan to stay in touch with your constituents' concerns and needs.
I'm in touch with my constituents from Walpole and Norwood every day, almost every hour of every day. Just before this program started this evening, I texted and received a text back from Chief Bill Brooks, Norwood Police Chief, to alert him that I was able to secure a $46,000 state grant from the Executive Office of Public Safety. I do office hours. I am accessible. I conduct opinion polls at the municipal elections to get voter attention to certain issues that are coming up for debate. And I'm accessible 7 days of the week and 24 hours a day for my constituents. So to be a good state representative, it's a full-time job, and that's not going to change.
Thank you, John. Michael, do I need to repeat the question to you?
Nope, we're good.
Okay, good.
Thank you. I think it all starts with holding frequent office hours in the district. That's not happening enough to listen to and address the concerns of people who live there. It needs to revolve around the busy schedules of our working families. I'm not only focused on being transparent while at the State House, but also in the district. So my door will always be open. And representation, however, can't come when it's most convenient to the representative. And these office hours must happen when it's most convenient to the represented. It also means publishing a regular newsletter to keep the community in the loop of what we've been up to, not just around election time. And you say you're in touch with constituents. Just 2 hours ago, I received an email from a member from a resident of Norwood saying that they've tried to contact your office for months about racial justice, and they have not heard a response from you. 3 months ago, a Norwood resident once again was trying to get help for unemployment benefits. They said they could not get a response from you. I was able to put them in touch with someone to help them the next day. That's how I plan to keep in touch with my constituents and always getting back to them. We need frequent office hours in the district. That's not happening at the moment.
All right, Michael, you get the next question. In view of the importance of climate change to Massachusetts and the United States, what are your thoughts on H4912, an act creating a 2050 roadmap to a clean and thriving Commonwealth? What do you support and not support?
You just repeat the question, you kind of broke up there.
You need again? In view of, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. In view of the importance of climate change to Massachusetts and the United States, what are your thoughts on H4912, an act creating a 2050 roadmap to a clean and thriving Commonwealth? What do you support and not support?
I'm proud to say that I'm endorsed by the Sierra Club, one of the most important environmental groups in the country and here in Massachusetts. I do support that bill, working to pass legislation to get that done. Energy is one of the driving forces of climate change, and the fossil fuel industry is the driving force funding the opposition to environmental legislation. I think converting Massachusetts to 100% renewable energy will stop the ceaseless consumption of non-renewable sources that pose a threat to our communities. Renewable energy is far more reliable, far less expensive, and switching to these energy sources saves our constituents both time and money in the long run.
Thank you, Michael. John, do you unmute? Yes, good. Do you need the question repeated?
No, Madam Moderator. Thank you, though. Yeah, I'm endorsed by the Environmental League of Massachusetts. I'm also endorsed by the Mass Organization of State Engineers and Scientists that work hands-on. When I created and wrote the law to create the Community Preservation Act, which Norwood has adopted, the Sierra Club was nowhere to be seen when we were putting that through. And I'm happy that the town just cut the ribbon on the Bond Street playground with CPA funds. I worked with Moses. I worked with the Department of Environmental Protection to secure the $2.7 million in financing to rebuild Norwood sewer systems so that superstorms like the one on June 28th don't destroy homes. Ask the folks that have been affected by this storm. Ask them their experience, whether it's Sue Davis down at 53 Dean or Doug Jassett at 22 Andrews, or Beth Calabrese at 21 Andrews, or Allie Pike, who lives at 49 Rock Street, or Ed Morad, who lives at 23 Robinwood Road. I visited all these homes and saw firsthand the destruction of their homes. Norwood needs new capacity to catch rainwater so it doesn't end up destroying their homes like the June 28th superstorm did. I created the fund, the $50 million fund designed to draw down federal money from the federal government, and created the $10 million fund by assessing the insurance industry that was denying claims left and right. When I told that to Governor Baker, he couldn't believe it. And he has his own commissioner of insurance investigating all the denials of those claims. That's the environmental protection that people care about in the town of Norwood and Walpole.
Thank you, John. And you are first on the next question. COVID-19 has had a huge impact on our state's economy. Small businesses are struggling and may be out of business by year end. As a state representative, what steps will you take in the next session to help one of the most important portions of our local and state economy?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Yeah, I was one of the first handful of legislators to urge the governor to declare a state emergency at the very beginning of the pandemic. But knowing what type of fiscal impact that would have on the coffers of Massachusetts, was one of the first ones calling for a postponement of the deadline for the filing tax deadline from April 15th to July 15th, knowing that our businesses, our hotels, our motels, our restaurants weren't going to be pulling in the income that Massachusetts relies upon for education programs, for criminal justice programs, for environmental protection programs, and the like. So this is extremely important to me because we need to relax some of the onerous business regulations that are crushing our small businesses. I was happy to vote to freeze the unemployment insurance trust, which basically saved about $141 per employee for our small business community for the unemployment insurance trust. It's these types of regulations that we need to relax moving through the next fiscal year, because unless the federal government comes down with some version of the HEROES Act, which after speaking with Congressman Lynch, I'm confident that next month the Congress will do, then it'll be really tough for our small business.
You're frozen. Michael, John, are you unmuted? Yeah. John, you're unmute. John, unmute yourself. John, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and finish up. You were finishing and you froze.
What did you leave me off?
No, you said about the HEROES Act. You expect it to be passed next month.
I do expect some version of the 7 buckets of money in that. I expect the Congress to do at least 3 because there's bipartisan support in Congress. And I think that will immensely help state budget makers immensely throughout FY21 so that we can help out small businesses in particular.
Thank you. Michael, unmute yourself. Michael, unmute. Yes. Do you want me to repeat the question?
Please do.
COVID-19 has had a huge impact on our state's economy. Small businesses are struggling and may be out of business by year end. As a state representative, what steps will you take in the next session to help one of the most important portions of our local and state economy?
All right. Well, that was just all semantics, John. The people know that. I think we need to ensure economic stability during and after the pandemic, and the business as usual on Beacon Hill hasn't produced anything. We need to look at this legislative session. There hasn't been a major bill passed by the House in months. A zero is a zero, and if there's no money, there's nothing we can do. Nothing's being funded. We're looking at possibly the largest budget shortfall in a very long time, and there's not one person who can change that. It doesn't matter who you know, who you call. These are hard times for all of us. I think the last thing we need is business as usual. With that being said, the expansion of the Paycheck Protection Program to relieve small businesses. And we need to do what Norwood and Walpole do best, and that's come together in times of crisis and take care of one another. I do want to get back to the $50 million that John mentioned earlier. I'm happy that you brought that up. There's no chance that that's funded, adopted by the House. And the person who should be getting credit is Tony Mazzucco.
Thank you. Michael, don't go away. You get the next question. Massachusetts has passed H 4794, an act to improve police officer standards and accountability and to improve training. What does it mean for Norwood and Walpole, and what could your role be as a state representative?
Thank you for the question. Black Lives Matter, period. And we must mend the disgusting history that racism has in our country. That means reforming our broken criminal justice system and prioritizing rehabilitation over mass incarceration. We need to address the concerning school to prison pipeline. That means fully funding our schools in every single district. That means passing Medicare for all so that every person in the Commonwealth has affordable quality healthcare. And it means confronting the climate crisis, which we know disproportionately affects people of color. I don't support defunding the police or anything else that would make our communities less safe, as misrepresented. I believe that the police reform bill, however, was rushed. There wasn't enough due diligence before some votes, but there is a need for reform to make our communities safer for both people of color and police officers. Everybody needs to have a seat at the table, people of color, law enforcement officers, and their families and elected officials. And we need a civilian review board that has civilians, not just law enforcement officers. And I was disappointed with the representatives' vote on that.
Thank you. John, do you need to have that question repeated? And
yes, you repeat the question so I make sure I
Yes.
get it accurately.
Massachusetts has passed H 4794, an act to improve police officer standards and accountability and to improve training. What does it mean for Norwood and Walpole, and what could your role be as a state representative?
My role as a state representative was to support the 10-point plan by the Black and Latino Legislative Caucus, and I do still support that plan. The bill adopted by the House and the one passed by the Senate passed civil rights protection for all, except for those civil rights of those who protect us. It went after qualified immunity when the Black Latino Caucus was not asking to dismantle qualified immunity that protects our public servants. So I support that. The architect of the 10-point plan is my dear friend and seatmate, Representative Russell Holmes, who's endorsed me on this race, and I'm proud to have his endorsement. But make no mistake about it. Dennis Mon, who's the president of Local 1631, the Norwood Firefighters, says Mr. Dooley is no friend of public safety. So I stand with our first responders because I think we missed a wonderful opportunity, and I still think we can get it straight, to pass a police reform bill, which the police officers in my district and Walpole Norwood both support, but not when it starts to attack their families and their professions. We missed a wonderful opportunity in the House, and hopefully the conference committee between the House and the Senate gets it right and exercises all of that, all the woefully wrong amendments and legislation that harms our first responders. And we need to reform police system here in Massachusetts, but not at the expense of our first responders who protect us.
Thank you. And John, you get the next question. Beyond voting by mail and early voting, what can you do to ensure every voter in the 12th Norfolk district has their vote counted?
Well, just 2 days ago, I sent a letter to Speaker Pelosi and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, urging them to pass a $25 billion bill to enable our postal systems that deliver votes in Massachusetts and across the country to make sure that every vote is counted. I supported early voting long before it was a popular thing. I supported mail voting and in person for those who feel safe enough to go to the 6 voting precincts in Norwood and the 2 voting precincts in Walpole. So having the ability to vote and having that vote counted is utmost importance to me. It's a high priority as we continue to fund the clerks. We have a great clerk in Norwood and a great clerk in Walpole that we're working hand in hand with. So thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you, John. Michael, do you need the question repeated?
Yes, please.
Beyond voting by mail and early voting, what can you do to ensure every voter in the 12th Norfolk district has their vote counted?
Sure. First, I'd like to see same-day registration, voter registration enacted and passed. That's something I would push for. And also, no excuseless absentee voting all the time, not just in times of a pandemic. I think that the right to vote is sacred, and we need to ensure that across the board at all times. I'm very happy that we have vote by mail. It's been successful, and I thank both town clerks and Norwood and Walpole for the great work that they do in ensuring that we can continue to fund the town clerk's office. I do want to just go back and say that the representative said I was no friend of public safety, and he mentioned Mr. Mon. Mr. Mon does support you, and he's someone who's also said the N-word and has shared Confederate flags on his Facebook. So if that's someone that is a friend of public safety, I'm happy that I do not have his support. And thank you.
Michael, you get the next question. In 2015, the Center for Public Integrity gave Massachusetts a grade of D+ as part of its comprehensive assessment of state government accountability and transparency. Among the categories where the Commonwealth received poor marks were state budget processes, legislative accountability, and public access to information.
You kind of broke up on, what did you say? Can you just repeat? I'm sorry.
Sure. From the beginning, in 2015, the Center for Public Integrity gave Massachusetts a grade of D+ as part of its comprehensive assessment of state government accountability and transparency. Among the categories where the Commonwealth received poor marks were state budget processes, legislative accountability, and public access to information. Massachusetts is the only state where the governor's office, legislature, and judiciary all claim to be exempt from the state's public records law. Do you support legislative rules reforms? And if so, do you support legislative rules reforms? And if so, which ones?
I absolutely do. I support Act on Mass, which is a great organization's mission to secure that a roll call vote recording in the House, committee votes, and the publication of all votes are taken in the state legislature. I signed that on day one, and I'll make every single vote that I take in committee or on the House floor publicly and easily available to everyone. Something that my opponent also signed on but voted against back in 2017. I also want to ensure that all other representatives do the same, and democracy cannot continue to happen behind closed doors. Our constituents deserve to have the right to know how the representative votes on all issues. I'd also love to see reform to the House co-sponsorship process. There are many popular House bills that get bogged down in the back rooms of committee before they can even hit the floor, even with the majority of legislators behind them. I'd love to see co-sponsorships actually mean something in the House and actually serve to push legislation forward. Otherwise, it will just take too long to make bold, necessary change in our state.
Thank you, Michael. John, do you need that question repeated? It was a long one.
No, thank you, Madam Moderator. In the interest of time, I'm ready to answer.
Okay, good.
I support the efforts when I've been at the forefront in efforts to bring more sunshine into the operations of the House of Representatives. I can't control the Senate, can't control the governor, but to apply the public records law to the Massachusetts State Legislature and the open meeting law. I've been at the forefront of rules reform. I was the first chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee to require a minimum of 10 days for the House Ways and Means state budget recommendations to be not only in print, but online. empowering the members and the public knowing what's in their state budget. I worked with the Progressive Caucus on amendments and rules changes at the beginning of this past session to give full 3 days to review a bill once it comes out of committee that can't be rushed through, like the Senate rushed through the Police Reform Act without even considering talking to the minority law enforcement officers of Massachusetts, to give at least 30 minutes before an amendment is taken up, yes or no, to make all public testimony and committee work public. And then to require the House Ways and Means Committee to discharge bills out that sit there and languish, to have all committee votes recorded. I was the author of term limits for Speaker of the House. And I worked with the Black and Latino Caucus and the Progressive Caucus to prohibit non-disclosure agreements for House employees. I worked with Gretchen Carlson and the Women's Caucus. I was the only male member of the House to support the prohibition of non-disclosure agreements. And I worked with Russell Holmes to have an office, a quality of office space. So I've been at the forefront of opening up the process, making it more transparent so the people and the taxpayers can see what's going on behind closed doors on Beacon Hill.
Thank you. And John, you get the next question first. Massachusetts is one of 10 states that has a full-time state legislature as defined by the National Council of State Legislatures, meaning 80% or more, the equivalent of a full-time job. How do you plan to balance this full-time job with your other responsibilities?
It's difficult to do. I'm not going to lie. I'm raising 3 girls here in Norwood, and I'm a lawyer at the firm of Rudolph Friedman. And you're constantly going back and forth from your family life to your legislative life, which never ends, which is unceasing, and you're sort of the practice of law. No, I'm fully committed to being a full-time state representative, and that's what Massachusetts requires. Other legislatures are part-time. I disagree with that. I think the closest branch of government accountable to the people is the House and Senate, and the House is even more accountable to the people. The governor, the executive, represents 6.7 million people. And the judiciary, and I agree with this, is wholly unaccountable to the people because we don't vote for them, nor should we vote for them for the proper and equal administration of justice. That means that the legislature and the Constitution requires this, that we meet at least in formal or informal sessions at least twice a week. We should not take away from that commitment. This year, I called upon the House Speaker and the Senate President to suspend the rule that requires us to finish full formal sessions by the date of July 31st. I prevailed in that, and we were able to move that end date off till next January so we can continue to get the serious business of the people done.
Thank you, John. Michael, do you need to have the question repeated?
Please repeat the question. Thank you.
Massachusetts is one of 10 states that has a full-time state legislature. This is defined by the National Council of State Legislators, meaning it's 80% or more of the equivalent of a full-time job. How do you plan to balance this full-time job with your other responsibilities?
When I'm state representative, this will be my full-time job, and it will be my only job. I'll dedicate all my time focusing on the people of Norwood and Walpole. And I know we have a part-time representative right now. There was a letter in the paper. Thank you for giving me credit for interning in your office. I sat at your desk. I didn't measure the drapes. I sat at your desk because you weren't there. This is a full-time job and it needs to be treated as such. And this will be my top priority.
Thank you. Michael, you get this question first. School budgets will undoubtedly take a major hit due to the coronavirus. How can you help ensure Norwood will be able to build the new middle school it so desperately needs?
That's a great question. Thank you. You kind of broke up at the end. What did you say after the middle
Oh.
school?
I said, how will it be able to build the new middle school it so desperately needs?
It's a great question. We have a lot of work to do, definitely when it comes to fully funding our public education. We need to pass the Fair Share Amendment so we can fully fund our public schools and bringing money to Norwood. The Student Opportunity Act going even further to fully fund and be able to build a new middle school. That's step number one, making sure that we actually have funds to do so. We passed an override because we had threats to cut everything at our public schools. I was the only candidate who supported the override, and just continuing to fully fund our public schools through passing the Fair Share Amendment and also through expanding the Student Opportunity Act, we can get the funds we much need.
John, do you need to have that question repeated?
No, Madam Moderator.
Okay.
My opponent talks about inaccessibility. I mean, that he sat on my State House desk. First of all, Michael, I offered you an internship. You were only there for a week. And then I wrote 15 letters to schools to try to get you in. Couldn't get you into Harvard, but I did get you in through recommendations. I did get you into UMass Boston. An education you haven't finished yet. You've said you're going to go back to school. I don't know how you go back to school and be a full-time state representative at the same time. It seems contradictory to me. I'm the author of the Massachusetts School Building Authority. That is the best way to build a new middle school, to Philip Coakley Middle School. And I just obtained a $150 million commitment to increase the $820 million that we're already getting this fiscal year from the sales tax to fund the school building trust. I support a $202 million of a commitment that I got to secure $750,000 for Norwood and $700,000 for Walpole for personal protective equipment in case of those students whose parents choose to have an in-person, in-school learning experience, that they're safe, the teachers, while they're educating, and those who are learning. I voted for the Fair Share Amendment 4 times, the so-called millionaire's tax. I voted for it 4 times to draw down money, not just for our education system, but for our transportation here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So I have a proven track record, unlike my opponent who doesn't.
All right. John, you get the next question first. What could you do as our representative to finalize state aid and GIC numbers so that Norwood has solid numbers at town meeting time to make decisions, particularly about school budgets, which begin on July 1st?
Well, I was one of the early members of the House to call for a resolution by the House and the Senate to give minimum figures to municipalities and school districts so they know exactly what they're going to get, at least at a minimum, in Chapter 70, which is K through 12 public education financing, and unrestricted general government assistance, which this year I was able to work with my legislative colleagues in Ways and Means, both in the House and Senate, to secure a commitment that there will be no cuts, that last year's funding will be a minimum as we take up the FY21 budget next month. So it's a high priority for me, and will continue to be a high priority for me.
Michael, your response? Do you need it repeated? Do you
Please
need to- what could you do as our representative to finalize state aid and GIC numbers so that Norwood has solid numbers at town meeting time to make decisions, particularly about school budgets, which begin July 1st?
Can you just repeat? I'm sorry, you kind of broke.
You didn't hear the whole thing or just the ending?
Just you broke off in the middle, and then it
Oh,
came.
okay. Let me try again. What could you do as our representative to finalize state aid and GIC numbers so that Norwood has solid numbers at town meeting time in order to make decisions, particularly about school budgets, which begin on July 1st? Hello?
We've
Michael.
lost the candidate.
We lost Michael. Michael? Okay, we're going to make this, John has already answered the question. Michael, I'll repeat the question to you, and this will be the last question before we go to closing statements. So here's the question. Can you hear me, Michael?
I can hear you now.
Okay. What could you do as our representative to finalize state aid and GIC numbers so that Norwood has solid numbers at town meeting time to make decisions, particularly about school budgets, which begin on July 1st?
Sure, thank you. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened with my computer, but I think the first thing to go look at is what's called GILTI, the Global Intangible Low Taxed Income, where we're ending the use of offshore tax havens and closing corporate tax loopholes. Also the tiered corporate minimum tax, where every corporation should be able to has to pay a proportional minimum tax rate. There's also corporate disclosure, making sure that there's transparency in how our corporations do business. Once again, closing more tax loopholes and getting more money. And I just want to say that special interests and dark money have way too much power, and we need to break their stronghold on politics. And by doing the three things that I just said, that's a first step.
All right, thank you. So as I said, that will complete the questions. So we're now going to finish with 2-minute closing statements from each candidate. And John, we will begin with you.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I want to thank the League of Women Voters and congratulate all the women voters of Walpole and Norwood. As the father of 3 daughters, I'm very proud that on Wednesday we'll be celebrating the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment. My first job in Norwood was as a paper boy, delivering to the families of Norwood. I was age 5, and in many ways I'm still a paper boy, delivering different types of papers for the people of Norwood in forms of laws that protect our veterans, our seniors, our school children, those struggling with opioid addiction. But this election it's less about Mr. Dooley and me than Mr. Plasko and me, who endorses Mr. Dooley. See, Bill Plasko desperately wants a liquor license for this out-of-town, out-of-state corporation that broke its promise to the children of Norwood. And 400 citizens testified against that the bill that Senator Rush and I agreed to file, contingent upon them keeping their promise to the children. They have not kept their promise to the children. So Mr. Plasko couldn't get it through the House or the Senate and tried to take a pocket license to get it through the ABCC, but Matt Brown and 25 angry taxpayers held up the process. So then he threatened to take papers out of me. I don't care. I'm not going to be intimidated. I don't work for the board. I work with them. I don't work for corporations. Work with them, but won't be intimidated. So comes up with a better scheme. He'll bankroll Mr. Dooley's campaign. On May 30th, gave him dark money. On August 12th, just 12 days ago, gave Mr. Dooley double the amount that Mr. Plasko gave Mr. Dooley. So it's down between a water boy who's going to carry their dirty water on Beacon Hill or a paper boy who time and again has always delivered for the people of Norwood. And that's John Rogers. May God bless you all, and may God bless the United States of America.
Thank you, John. Michael, your 2-minute closing statement. No, Michael, unmute yourself.
John, this election's between you and I, not you and Mr. Plasko. I want to thank the League for organizing this forum. I also want to thank everyone who's watching live at home and attending virtually. And if it wasn't clear already, tonight revealed why there needs to be a change on September 1st. The people have an opportunity to bring a fresh voice to Beacon Hill. And now more than ever, we need a new generation of leadership to confront the challenges that face us. I'm proud to be supported by the Sierra Club because they know I'll confront climate change head on. I'm proud to be supported by NARAL Pro-Choice Mass because they know I'll always stand up for women's reproductive freedom. I'm proud to be supported by the Bay State Stonewall Democrats because they know I stand up for the LGBTQ+ community. I'm proud to be supported by multiple members of the Democratic State Committee because they know I'm a real Democrat, not one who's financed by Republican super PACs. I'm proud to be supported by Norwood School Committee member Dave Catania because he knows that our schools deserve better. I'm proud to be supported by Walpole community leader Phil Chacharowski because he knows that Walpole deserves a community presence. And I'm proud to be supported by the chair of the Norwood Selectmen, Bill Plasko, because who knows better than him about the absence of our leadership on Beacon Hill. Please go to my website, www.votedooley.com, www.votedooley.com for more information. I have an open mind. I'm always happy to listen to your concerns, and I humbly ask to earn your vote on or before Tuesday, September 1st in the Democratic primary. Thank you.
I want to thank you, John Rogers, and you, Michael Dooley, for participating in this forum, which will be replayed, certainly. We have had some technical difficulties tonight. It's a different kind of forum, I'm sure. We used to face-to-face, but thank you both for doing this and giving the citizens of Norwood an opportunity to listen to your views. So again, thank you for doing this. And I will turn it over to the league president, Courtney Rogers.
Thank you, Florence, and thank you to the viewing public as we work through some technical difficulties on various ends of our Zoom meeting. These electronic forums are not perfect, and we thank you for your patience with this. And thank you to John and Mike for your willingness to participate in our forum and to roll with the technical difficulties. We wish you both good luck with the election. A recording of this forum will be available on the Norwood Community Media website and social media channels, as well as the league social channels shortly after this forum. This is a slide with some important dates to remember. The primary election is Tuesday, September 1st. There are options for early voting by mail and early voting in person, as well as voting on election day. Visit the Massachusetts Secretary of the Commonwealth's website or contact our town clerk's office for details. The slide also shows the League of Women Voters online comprehensive voter guide, Vote 411, which is available now with information on all of the primary offices and will include candidate responses to questions, in addition to the Norfolk County offices, which the League of Women Voters Needham produced some excellent forums, which you can find the links to on our social media channels as well. The League of Women Voters thanks Norwood Community Media for streaming this forum and for handling the technical aspects. Thank you again for joining us, and remember to vote on or before Tuesday, September 1st, because voting matters and your vote matters most of all, and mostly because democracy is not a spectator sport. Thank you and good night.